People had no idea how much weed I had in that crib because I'm selling it to you in eighths, but I had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of weed put up there and in a storage unit like down the way. There is a full-fledged dispensary in Dale's basement called The Store. We have shifts, we have hours, we have a dispatch system, we have security protocol, we got the liquor store door at the buzzer, we have the weaponized hot water pipes that we can drop like the 220, 190 degree water on intruders. We got a slot for him to pop the shoddy through if shit gets real. Like, we had day shift, night shift, count shift, managers. We're hitting every sale. That was my philosophy. HEL, hit every lick. I'd be like, I don't care if it's half a gram at 4 o'clock in the fucking morning, we're making that sale. I'm in all black with a stocking hat on. I'm about to fucking die. But I had to wear my Kith Cookie Monster hat. I wanted the world to see that I own it. It was important to me.
I want to start from the beginning because you have a really interesting story, a really interesting life.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
All over the place. I was born in Chicago, Illinois, because my dad was a grad student at the University of Chicago. Then we moved to New York City pretty quickly after I was born, so I lived in Manhattan in the early 80s, like first in Prospect Park and Fort Greene in Brooklyn, and then in the Upper East Side, like 81st and 3rd, 81st and Lex, like Yorkville, probably from like 81 to like late 80s. Then I lived in Easton, Pennsylvania in the Lehigh Valley. And then when I was 12 or 13 in the early 90s, we moved to Pittsburgh, and that's where I went to high school and jumped off the porch. Although I was already kind of on moderate bullshit in Easton, but like, you know, I was 11 years old. It was a small town, so there wasn't that much I could do. So that's why I always claim and rep Pittsburgh, because while I lived in a lot of other places, you know, I think generally if you're into the culture, your formative period is going to be your adolescent years, right? And that's where I had my adolescent years, was Squirrel Hill, the East Side, Pittsburgh.
Did you get some influence from New York, you feel?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, all my friends in Pittsburgh used to clown me when I was in high school. They were like, oh, you're the dude from New York, bro. Yeah, because also, you know, Pittsburgh has an enormous enmity towards all others. They hate Cleveland, they hate Philly, they hate New York, they hate, but I don't think these other cities even really pay much. Sorry, Pittsburgh. I don't think these other cities even really care that much. But I get it because Pittsburgh's like a scrappier, smaller city or whatever. But yeah, no, definitely. I definitely had a New York influence. I was really into hip hop culture even before I moved to Pittsburgh. I was obsessed with it. And I had been listening to hip hop, honestly, almost out the womb, because when you were being raised in Manhattan in the 80s, and you literally saw guys breakdancing on the street with a boombox, like it was a stereotypical Beat Street movie. Anytime you got on the subway, all the subways were sprayed. You saw all the guys, young guys walking around with their boom boxes and the big sunglasses, you know, Puma, Fila, Adidas sweatsuits. Like, this was all happening. And I remember my best friend, who was my age, they were the superintendent's family. They were Scottish American. I guess there was like a racket where all the doormen and supers on the Manhattan were Scottish and Irish in the 80s. That was probably been replaced by Latino people since then. They probably have the same thing going on. But the older brother, he listened to Run DMC, Fat Boys, Curtis Blow, Slick Rick. So that was literally, besides the music my mom was listening to, which was all pretty much soul music and like hipster rock. Like, my mom's super hipster, like Devo and stuff like that. All the music I was listening to, like literally my first consciousness was all old school East Coast hip hop, and I'm in New York City while it's happening. So I wasn't like I was into rock and roll until I was 13 and then discovered hip hop. I've never listened to anything. I've listened to other things, but I've only really ever listened to hip hop my whole life.
So growing up in a couple different cities, how would you describe your childhood overall?
It was good. I mean, I think what someone said, did you have a good childhood or are you funny? Pick one. So I'm not saying I had like a great childhood, but that was no fault of my family. My parents are really great people. They did the absolute best they could with me. They were loving, caring, conscientious, amazing people who spoiled me rotten and were really good to me. They never hit me. So I'm not going to sit here. If anyone ever actually, you know, the 3 people who are going to watch this interview in their entirety, not because of you, because of me, probably 2.5 of them will be like, Jesus fucking Christ, you had a bad childhood. So I'm not going to go there. That said, when you move around a lot, it does suck. I mean, when we moved here to Pittsburgh, it was like 94 or something. The dude who was above my dad at the company that my dad's like the CSO of now, it's a big trucking company called Pitt, Ohio Trucking. Obviously, it's based in Pittsburgh. My dad was a star salesman, and his territory was like New York City, Lehigh Valley. That was where he was in his early 30s, late 20s. He had always sold space on trucks. That was kind of his bag, which was a weird job for someone who was like a super erudite, completely non-practicing Reform Jew who studied Russian history at an Ivy League school to get, but you got a kid to feed, and then you got another kid to feed. You're going to do what you got to do. And he was very good at it. He was actually he's one of the best salesmen I've ever seen in my life, and I've done a lot of selling. His boss died. The guy above him died. So he got a promotion probably 15, 20 years earlier than he might have otherwise. So in the middle of the school year, we just vanished. We were like witness protection or something. And we moved to Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh in the middle of the 90s. And while, Squirrel Hill, it's a nice neighborhood. It's a Jewish urban enclave, so it's not going to be anything you'd call slum. It would be like moving from Easton to Squirrel Hill would be like moving from North Jersey or Long Island into like the middle of Brooklyn in like 94 or 95. Even if you're living in like a nice neighborhood, you're off the porch. You're going to see a lot. You're going to encounter a lot of wild shit and a lot of wild people very quickly. Because the mid-90s in all American cities, if you actually lived in the city, are generally the same. I mean, we could bring someone in the studio from Indianapolis, Tampa, Florida, whatever. Anyone who's our age who grew up in any kind of subculture and lived in the actual limits of the city, and a lot of the suburbs too, but especially people who lived in the city, be like, what was it like living in like Biloxi, Mississippi? And like, they're like, oh my fucking God, this shit was wild. So, yeah.
So what kind of kid were you in high school? Is there potentially a story that could like illustrate who you were?
I mean, we'd be here all day, man. I was super into underground hip hop. We had formed a crew called the Deadly Scribes, myself and like 4 or 5 of my best friends. It was Scooter back then. He was Macer, and he's been like Perk 32. He's a graffiti artist and a really prolific, talented skateboarder. There was Brandon Snyder, B, Science. There was Mike Language. And then there was Tim Brindle, who's now a famous Christian rapper and pastor. But back then, he was Ambush. That was his nickname back then. And then Verbal Tech from Baltimore, he joined it when he went to Temple with Ambush, and I followed them to Temple, and so did Scott. Scooter also followed us to Temple. But we started like one of the first true like backpack era underground hip hop crews. There was an thriving underground hip hop scene in the city long before us. So I'm not, there's a Strick, Flow, Aliquiva, DJ Selecta. There's so many people who are older than us who came before us. But our flavor of it, where we were like multiracial, backpackers, tagging everywhere, freestyling, ciphering, battling, lyrical. We were the first ones in that vein, I think. And we had a lot of energy, and we had a really good fan base back then. We'd do shows and get hundreds of people coming to our shows, even when we were in high school. So I was kind of like a movement leader in that sense for my age group. Like we had like, it was almost, it reminds me like a prison car. Cause like in federal prison, you have a car, like you're with 068, that's Western PA, or 054, Southern District of New York, or the whole New York State, depending on like where you are, Jersey. We were with Philly, so that's a PA car, DMV, whatever. So at Alderdice, we called it the bench, like, because again, we were such underground hip hop devotees. We're like, it's like the bench, like Wild Style and Style Wars. But it really was cool because it was all the MCs, all the B-boys, all the DJs, all the graffiti writers, beatboxers, whatever. If you were part of that culture, and there were like 40 of us in the school, all races, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all ages, all grades. And we would cipher outside the school. We would kick it together. We'd hang out. We'd try and make music using like, shitty fucking headphone microphones and pantyhose on the hanger and shit. Like we were, with like ADATs recording into 4 tape decks. So we were really creating culture every day. I was a horrible student. I was a constant discipline problem. I never went to school. I was high every day. We were living a fast life, my friends and I. It was kind of like the movie Kids, but set in Pittsburgh. You know, like we did a lot of drugs. We never went to school. We were always with girls. We were just wilding out. Like, and we were like absolutely like, I'd wake up. I was a total degenerate by the time I was like 15, 16 years old, a super overprivileged degenerate. So good story. This almost reads like a Simpsons episode. We had this principal, and he literally was like the principal who was like a villain in an 80s movie. His name was, I think, is Dr. Murray or Mick Murray. It was one of those. And he had like the jowls, and you get like all, you children. And it was like a really weird, because like, dude, we had like Crips and Bloods like killing it. Like, our school was fucking buck. It was like, this guy was the principal of like high school high. Like I mean, it was like such a coolie high. It was like such like a weird mashup, because by the mid 90s, I mean, Pittsburgh was a fucking war zone. All the public schools were on absolute bullshit. Everyone was. It was just a wild time. You know, this guy's like, you better straighten up and fly right. People like bring guns to school and shit. Children are getting killed outside of school based on like neighborhood gang beef, and it's coming back into the school. On Monday, there's just a lot of crazy shit happening. So we get one of the guys from the bench. He was in the principal's office, and he heard like on a phone call, because you know there's no internet back then, but he like overheard surreptitiously that they were having a visiting principal's meeting for the Pittsburgh School District, Western PA. So he comes to me, and I'm like the staircase, like back staircase and shit, like, you know, writing rhymes with my giant headphones on. Someone's rolling a blunt, like Lord of the Flies. We never went to class. We never did anything we were supposed to do, just on absolute bullshit all the time. And he's like, yo, heard there's a, you know, I don't even know why he would tell me, but he did tell me because maybe he thought I would do something about it, and I did. He was like, yo, there's gonna be, all the principals are coming. And I was like, we just started laughing. Like, I was like, what if we spray painted something fucking crazy? We got the graffiti writers to write something insane on the front of the school, like the night before. So they couldn't get it off. There's no way they could buff it, whatever. You know, Alderdice is built like a classic East Coast giant urban public high school. It's like takes up a whole city block. It goes under the city block. It's a fortress. It's like 3 floors, whole city block. It looks like something from the Warriors, like when you see it. It's like that era. It's like 100 some years old. You know, everything's been painted so much, like the walls are coming out under the paint. It looks like a castle. It has like, you know, stone retaining walls and stuff that looks like bullshit turrets. It's a very kind of carceral environment for a public high school, which is funny if you think about the percentage of alumni that ended up doing time. It was a lot of us. But I was like, yeah, you're right. So we grabbed 2 younger kids who were graffiti writers, and we were like, look, they're coming tomorrow. Come back, because this is how wide open shit was. No cameras, I was like, just slide back after school in the middle of the night. I mean, we're all gonna be out all night anyways, every fucking night. So I was like, slide back and write something. I didn't tell them what to write. I was like, just write something crazy, big legible bubble letters so they could read it. And like, due to like my position in the hierarchy of the bench, it was like the dude who had the keys to the car. They're like, all right, we're on it. We got you, dog. Next morning, I get dropped off by my dad in our old boxy black Mercedes that we had in the mid 90s, and leave, whatever, you know, probably walk into school with like a Tommy Hilfiger suit and like ski goggles on, you know, dressed like the fucking maniac every day, just how we were. I come up the thing, and there's usually a big line of kids waiting to get into school. There weren't permanent metal detectors then, because this was pre-Columbine, but sometimes they bring them, sometimes they wouldn't. So sometimes there'd be an enormous line in the courtyard coming all the way down the stairs to the actual street. There was a big crowd up ahead. A lot of times there were fights coming into school. You never knew. And you were outside. It was pitch black outside because school started so early. Everyone's looking. And the big, you know, they're looking. So I kind of press through. Giant bubble letters. It says, Dr. Murray raped puppies. Like the name of the principal. Like I'm talking like 8-9 feet tall across the front retaining wall, where anyone walking in the school would see it. And then it says in cheerful but legible graffiti font on the side, welcome visiting principals. except they misspelled principles. It was like principles, like my honor or something like that. They put in quotation marks. Yo. They were searching people's shit and looking for anything. We were literally running around the school like, yo, throw your black books away or fucking run and throw them in the bushes or something. Because they were literally looking for everyone's black books to try and see who did it. I do think they suspended a kid over just having bubble letters in his book, but this was pretty indicative of like our day-to-day in high school. I mean, I was just enormous authority problem, huge chip on my shoulder, Pied Piper. I could always get my friends to follow me into bullshit. That's kind of been like a staple of my life. But I'm gonna jump first though. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if it had come, the only reason I didn't do it was I'm not good at graffiti. You know what I mean? I just have like a basic hand style. I couldn't get it off the way they could. But yeah, I think that would kind of sum up like our life and times there.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So there's a story you told where you and a friend were preparing for a competition.
Oh, yeah.
And you were practicing and you didn't realize up until you got there that you had to freestyle.
Yeah. No, so like just because we were really into hip hop and the culture doesn't mean that we were any good at it and knew shit about shit. Now, the story, I don't know how you're going to edit this, but the story I told about the graffiti stuff, that was actually probably 2 or 3 years after this happened. So at this point, we'd learned how to rap somewhat, knew how to freestyle well, and were winning battles. But this was like the first time I ever grabbed the mic in front of other people. So it was me and Ambush, Timothy and Daniel, Dose and Ambush. And they had it on the college radio station and like word of mouth, there's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. So we were like, oh, a battle. This is how one proves themselves in the arena of gladiatorial hip hop combat. And now, you know, with like the written battle circuit being what it is, I think people don't understand how important those battles were back in the day because they didn't happen all the time. They were a big fucking deal. Let's just put it like that. And they could not be written. There was no prepared material allowed. And they were stricter on that than they are about paperwork in the feds. Like if they caught you using writtens, or what they thought were writtens, you were getting tossed. Like at least in Pittsburgh, they weren't going for it. We did not know that because, again, with no internet, you don't really have a lot of basis for comparison to study. Like we knew about the concept of battling. We had seen ciphers. Like we'd been in ciphers, many at that point. We had seen grainy footage on maybe a couple video cassettes of guys ciphering. But we're in Pittsburgh. It's the mid 90s. Unless you see this live, you don't really understand what's going on. And of course, too, in our egos, when someone was killing it off the top, you'd be like, well, clearly those were written. I mean, nobody could freestyle like we can't, so they couldn't. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we hear about this. So, and, Cannabis was like coming out at this point. So, it was, Cannabis was not a freestyler. He was just a master of the ferocious written battle rhyme, spit over a variety of beats, the New York radio freestyle. Great shit. I still listen to I've been listening to Cannabis on those Tony Touch freestyles the whole time I was in prison. They got me amped. So we sit there for like weeks just writing these rhymes, practicing them in the turret of his mansion on Northumberland Street because his stepdad was like the provost of like CMU or something like that. He was way crazier than me even too. We could do a whole other show about his ass. He was fucking fried. But so we're practicing and practicing and practicing. We're like, oh, we got this. Like we're gonna fucking So I forget how we signed up. We had to take 2 buses to go to a record store where some guy in his early 20s had the sign-in sheet. We're like, we're here to sign up for the battle for the culture. And he's like, fucking food for the grist mill. So it's that night of the battle. We are so nervous. We haven't eaten or slept in 2 days. I remember we're pale. Honestly, it felt like I was going for my sentencing. I remember when I went to go get sentenced, I was like, this is how I felt before that first battle. Just woeful. I felt like something was off woefully. We had our we had weird loose leaf sheets stuffed in our giant fucking cargo pants and stuff. We're all high as shit, smoking terrible weed, riding around the buses. We're like, yeah, we got this. We got this. We get to Oakland, the college neighborhood. It's a guy in his early 20s named Justin Strong, who was a pivotal part of the Pittsburgh hip hop scene because he established the venue, the Shadow Lounge. This was pre-Shadow Lounge. So this is ancient history. Gotta be 30 plus years ago. Probably not, almost 30 years ago. So he had events like in his, rented frat trap in South Oakland. All the college guys would rent houses. And this was like the underground hip hop house. And it was kind of serving as an ad hoc venue. So they set up like a basic sound system with 2 mics. They had a DJ with turntables. It worked well enough that you could hear. They had everyone outside. They had some like lighting strung up, whatever. It was a show. They had, hand-drawn graffiti bubble letter flyer with a, graffiti character on the mic and whatnot. We're like, we get there early as shit. We're like, maybe no one's going to come, whatever. 7 million people are there, a couple hours. Like everyone we have ever known in our lives, every girl we have ever talked to. I was like, wait, how'd you come here from New York City? Oh, I'm just looking at colleges. You're here? Are you a rapper? I'm like, oh my, me and him are looking at each other like, oh, bro. Like, so there's this guy who's there. So we watch the actual combat commence. We don't know when we're going to go. And we're like, I'm sorry. We're so earnest, We're these like little 130 pound, we thought we were grown ass men because we were on bullshit and doing stupid stuff and committing petty trouble and fist fighting and tagging and shit. We were fucking little privileged, spoiled, rich boys. But to us, this was so weighty and momentous. It felt like we were in a trench, with those little helmets on and artillery going. And he's like, we're like, look at each other like, if I have to battle you, I won't hold back. He's like, I won't either. Like hand on the back of that. Oh my God, this is so funny. Touching, but funny. So we noticed something immediately, which is that these guys are all freestyling because even the ones who aren't good, they're badly rapping about things that are happening around them. Another thing we noticed is that the crowd is very participatory, like Apollo theater participatory. Like if they don't like what you're doing, like immediately, like you're not getting it off. You're not, boo! These are all people in their late teens, early 20s. They ain't there for it. And there's this one guy, we see him get in. We actually knew him. His name was Ron Kent. His MC name was Noodles. He was a star basketball player and track star at our school. And Ron, Noodles, he could really freestyle, like very, very well. From the break, he was just one of those guys who was a natural. Like, I don't know if he ever was bad. We never saw him. We never saw his awkward, formative phases. He was just good. He was a little bit older than us too. He probably 2-3 grades up. He shows up. He's wearing the same backpack, the military surplus, 90s hip hop underground regalia. He grabs the mic. A lot of these guys are holding the mic like this, like a Jewish comedian at a retirement party or whatever. Ron's with the feathered, like we're like watching this and seeing like the subtle differentiation and technique that this guy knows what the fuck he's doing. It would be like watching a karate sparring. This dude's just like breaking everyone's fucking arms and knocking people the fuck out. You're like, okay. So Noodles is fucking torching people. Like he's hitting punchlines. His rhyme schemes are lining up. Like whatever. So I forget who went first. If it was me or Tim. I don't know if I even battled Noodles that night. I think Tim did. Noodles pulled out like a fucking like samurai sword and just like chopped his fucking head off and like blood was like, both of us just got like completely decapitated. But I remember, we had nothing else but that. So now we're looking at each other and like, we know like we're fucked. Like cover's blown. We have these writtens. They're not even good writtens. You know what I mean? They're like our fucking shitty 14-year-old writtens. Like we haven't spit over a variety of beats to even have these down as well as we need to. So we're up there like trying to fucking barely looking at the person, whatever. The other people are just like, and the crowd, of course, as soon as they see us get up there, there might have been like one other white guy in the whole battle. There were a lot of white hip hop fans at this point, but even the underground, this is pre-Eminem. Eminem is still doing like old world disorder shit with like Scan. Like Eminem is not signed yet. So like white rappers, they exist, but they are a fucking rarity. And everyone thinks that they suck and they shouldn't be doing it. So we jump up into this within 2 seconds, just boo. Like, we get completely shredded, humiliated. Noodles wins the battle, gets the $100, which in like 1997 today money, that's probably like $360,000 in today's money. $100 back then. It was more money than we could ever imagine. And we like leave. Like, we're just like so dejected. We don't even stay for the party. We just like slink away like orphans in the fucking night. Go home or whatever. The next day, because this is so funny, like, there was no internet reaction, there's no comments, there's no likes, whatever. But there was a college radio show on CMU 88.3, like Selector's radio show. And they were talking about the battle. They were all there. I think one of them probably DJ'd for it or whatever. And they're recapping it. And one guy goes, a lot of caucasoids in that battle last night. And they all sucked. We're just like, oh, fucking kill me, man. But, you know, like, everything in life, it's an impetus to get better, right? Then we knew. We're like, all right, you want to win a battle in Pittsburgh, you're going to have to fucking beat Noodles, however the hell that's going to happen. And you have to freestyle about everything. So we have to just start freestyling all the time and start trying to find other people who can freestyle. Like, the written shit, we write songs for the studio, but the written shit's dead. We freestyle. From now on, that's all we do. Freestyle, freestyle, freestyle. Everything has to be off the top of the dome. Thankfully, I actually was really good at it. I just didn't know it at the time because I'd never tried it. I got better at freestyling, started freestyling with my friends. All the other scribes and other MCs around were like, yo, you're really dope off the dome. Like, you're nice at freestyling. Freestyle with like Noodles and Chendo and some other dudes that were like local freestyle guys at the benches in Squirrel Hill all the time. We used to have, there were these benches by the post office, and that's where everyone hung out pre-internet era. It was like the benches in Washington Square Park, and kids, everyone would just be sitting there smoking weed, skateboarding, tagging, and we'd freestyle. We also were like selling weed too. So it was like kind of like our like weed spot for Squirrel Hill. So like we'd bag up and stash the bags like behind the post office or whatever. And then kids from the suburbs would come and we'd pitch. Dudes would be pitching, you know what I mean? Like all night long. One time we actually threw a show where we brought a live band made up of other students from our high school. These guys, you know, they could play drums and guitar, horn, whatever. And we brought them up to the benches and we played a live show at the benches for, again, it was like between 70 and 100 people, but you know, it was fucking great. You know what I mean? Like, and we freestyled a lot there. Like, we were getting better and better and better. Started, obviously, you're white in a public high school and you rap. You're going to battle everybody. You're going to battle anyone who sees you at that point is going to be like, I'm battling you. So I started beating all them and beating all them badly, like trouncing them. I realized I was getting better. This guy, Mo, came from New York City. He's actually friends with Diabolic and that crew Double Negative, like Cole and Taboo, who I actually hooked up with later through Mo when I went to college in New York briefly at Hunter or whatever. Stayed cool with him. But Mo moved to Pittsburgh, and Mo was like he's from Long Island, but he was like a true underground hip hop b-boy, and he knew about all the underground, all the lyricist lounge era stuff that was happening. He was kind of like a real injection of culture into the scene, because here's a guy who was from basically New York City in the late 90s, who was 100% on underground hip hop time. He was a really good b-boy, and he was a real hustler. You know what I mean? Like, he was going to promote the shit out of shows with the energy of a New York guy. So now all of a sudden Mo's bringing underground acts, but like national level underground. He's bringing the guys off the lyricist lounge liner notes to Pittsburgh to do, 200 to 400 or 500 person shows, because they're very well attended, because people are really like, they're psyched to go to these events. So he sees us. We start becoming basically like his like flyer children. We're running around passing out flyers for him, getting free to everything, always with him, whatever, always freestyling. He sees we have a following and we can rap. So he starts giving us opening slots at his shows. And he's booking dope venues like Club Laga when it was open in Oakland. Like, now we're starting to play out. So we're starting to get a little bit better. Not good yet, but we're getting way better, getting more proficient. And Mo is a big fan of throwing battles. B-boy battles, graffiti battles, DJ battles, but most importantly, MC battles. Because they bring people. They draw people. You put up a little prize. Really, the prize is the prestige. You film it with the clunky camera. Whatever. Who has bragging rights for the city. Noodles had it for at least a year and a half or whatever. My senior year of high school, I was 18 years old. We were like going up hard against Noodles then. It was like hip hop rivalry, like butting heads or whatever. I said, I was like, I will do this battle. I think that I'm the best. I mean, I wanted it. And I was like, I'm the best positioned to try and win this battle. At this point, fucking undergroundhiphop.com and Real Player were starting to give us audio of like actual free, the rock steady shit. Like we were starting to hear about some of these bigger national level freestyle battles. We'd only heard word of mouth. Like we heard this dude Eminem was like fucking this white dude from Detroit was vicious freestyle battler. We heard about Supernatural, who was an incredible freestyle battler. We heard about Juice, and we heard about Idea, this little white dude who was like basically our age, maybe a year or two older than us from Minneapolis. They said he was like the prodigy. Like he was like unstoppable. Like he just could trounce anybody off the head, whatever. I remember I was sitting in math class and someone came in. I think it was Scooter because he was a graffiti writer. Scooter actually was really instrumental in getting us down with a lot of shit because he went to Woodward, which was a skate camp in PA. And so skaters from across the country would go there. So he was with skaters from like LA, New York, Miami, Minnesota. So you can imagine like how cool these kids were in terms of like trading of culture, fashion, style, music, whatever. So Scooter came back and he had all the headshots tapes from Minneapolis, like the absolute OG. I wonder if he still has those OG old school headshots tapes. He met a kid from Minneapolis who was a street skater from the city, and they traded tapes because it's the 90s. And they told him about Rhyme Sayers and Idea and Slug and Dino Spectrum and like all this other stuff that was going on. So we had a framework. Then Scooter comes in with a magazine, a Scribble magazine. Graffiti magazine. So we love graffiti magazines. They're like our pornography. We're sitting in math class like, ooh, ah, ooh. But it gets to the back and they're talking about the Scribble Jam MC battle. And this is just this is a pictorial, like blurry photographs of, guys like, live action battling again. But, for us, a big underground crowd, whatever. And the way they're narrating this, they're like, these are like the top dudes. You know what I mean? I forget who was in it. That might have been the first year Idea won. That might have been the year Idea won or whatever. And I think like 2 years before was Eminem. But they're talking about all this in the little page paragraphy write-up. So now we know about this. This has entered into our consciousness that there's like these huge battles that happen out of town. And if we want to get better or just be around that culture, we got to go to these because this is where everyone is like that's where we're going to find more people like us, what we're on, who we are. So all this is happening at once. Locally, I decide to do this battle. I mean, it's not like the official, like a sanctioned league or whatever. It's not the official battle for who's the best freestyle battler in Pittsburgh in 1999 or 2000, but it kind of was because that's what it was. It was in a club in the Strip called Elements, I think. Go down there. There was drama because not just between us and Noodles, like Noodles was like the villain or whatever. I mean, he might see it differently, but at that time it was like, he was so good too. You know what I mean? Like, and he was at that point, he's like, fuck y'all, da da da. Like, we were like, we got to get this guy. We got to win, man. Science, Brandon B. He was a really, really talented MC. Probably naturally the best one of us in terms of like putting in like not as much effort, but just having perfect flow and like crazy concepts or whatever. He was not a great freestyler. That was not his forte. He could, but he was not like exceptional off the dome for long periods of time. That just wasn't what he was good at. For whatever reason, he signs up and puts himself in the battle. So I'm just like, bro, like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, like, why would you do that? But sure enough, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, never wrote anything down. But you can have some thoughts about your friends. Some stuff they do that gets on your fucking nerves. I mean, God knows, we knew each other really well. We were like brothers. We slept over each other's cribs all the time, wake each other up in the morning. Get up, bitch, what's up? Put your fucking clothes on, let's go. You know what I mean? So I knew him well. Let's say it would be like one of those like written battles. I had ample material for us. So it comes to that thing, 8 Mile scenario, little smokehouse club, completely packed out. There's videotape of this or whatever. Me and him, of course, they match. Mo is Mo. Mo's a consummate showman and performer. He matches Brandon and I up in the first round because he's like, this is great. This is, I was like, oh, brother against brother. Again, pre-internet, this was high drama. Everyone was like, we battle each other or whatever, and I fucking torch him because I can freestyle and he can't. He had a couple punchlines about me, but that was it though. He just tumbled after that, whereas I could actually freestyle. So like, it got a little personal. Not gonna lie. Next battle for me was Noodles. Back then, anything that was filmed was basically like a prelim for Scribble because Scribble did not have official prelims back then. What you had to do was you would make a fucking burn CD or a straight up videotape and you would mail it to Formless Kevin Beecham, who was like the true day-to-day organizer of Scribble. And he would review you and he'd pick, because they were always smart at Scribble. They knew they couldn't only have established rappers, like established underground rappers. They would have some stars. Like they would try and get like Juice to come back. I mean, shit, if Eminem would have come back, they would have taken him in a heartbeat. They wanted some big names, some big draws. They wanted the champions or guys who had done well in previous years to compete. They wanted to have some rivalries in the mix or whatever. But they also always wanted about half of the roster to be complete unknowns, like people who had never competed before. Because that's how you get new people and perpetuates. They were actually very forward thinking in that sense because a lot of hip hop dudes, a lot of promoters, they would be straight gatekeepers and they would only either let their friends in or they'd be like, well, we just fill this with 16 or 32 of like the biggest name MCs or whatever. But they realized that would be stagnating. So they always made room. And that's what the prelims were for. Once it became so tight that there were so many people trying to get in, they did the prelim structure because they were like, all right, the unknowns are going to battle at the prelim, and then the best of them, they get into the battle because, it's new people. It gets you in new fan engagement. So I battle Noodles and I beat Noodles, which was like a huge upset, very 8 Mile-ish. I remember mad people lost money on that shit. There were like a lot of like drug dealers in the crowd and adjacent to the hip hop scene at that point. And they were wagering at the time was big money, whatever. Everyone thought Noodles was going to win. I did. I won. I won convincingly. So I was, basically like, carried away on the on the hands of the crowd or whatever. I graduated. I won another battle right before I went away to college, and then I started competing in any battle I could get into, like in New York City, wherever. I was going up to Boston, anything I could do. I was competing. I was assembling a video record. By summer of '02, I had enough, I thought. I mailed it into Kevin Beecham. And he was like, I'm going to give you a spot. I think there weren't a lot of people in the back then. There were like 16 people like in the whole thing. So I was like, I'm from Pittsburgh. I think I was on Manifest Music back then. It was my label. I had like one album out maybe. But I was like, here's my record of, lower level, but pretty impressive freestyle wins. And he peeped it and he hit me back. He's like, I like your energy. He's like, I like the punchlines or whatever. He's like, yeah, let's get you in there. And that was that.
I found this question on YouTube. I thought it was a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about losing to Mac Lethal and Juice when it was obvious that you won?
Not good. I mean, here's the thing. I bear absolutely no ill will to either of those people because they're just other performers, artists, and rappers with their own arc of their own career and their own life and their own shit they're trying to get done. They're pushing their boulder up their hill. Wasn't like there was some massive Illuminati collusive conspiracy to deprive me of my just due. I know that I won both of those battles. I think it's pretty clear that I did. It doesn't matter, And here's the other thing too. Their success and what they've done has nothing to do with, again, the fact that like a judge said they won this battle or didn't win it. Mac Lethal, which is, I think is the one people focus on more because we're like the same age, both from like, he's from the true Midwest, I'm from like the near Midwest, whatever. We seem kind of parallel, whatever. Mac Lethal is a much better songwriter than me. He makes better songs. Now, people would argue like, Max might have said it, I think one time. He's like, bar for bar, like Dose is a fucking monster. You know what I mean? Like put him over a beat, put him in the booth, give him a mic in front of a crowd, whatever. He's going to absolutely torch it. but how good are his coherent projects? Can the dude write a hook? I'm cognizant of my own limitations as an artist. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. So I'm not going to be the dude who's going to sit here and say this, that, or the third. In the immediate, yeah, it was really fucking, it infuriated me. And it did negatively affect me to the extent that I got as much mileage as I could have out of like almost won this twice, probably should have. I still turned that into touring in Europe and touring in Japan and going to South America. I did a lot. I milked that for that scrap or shred for as long as I could. If I had had the championship, probably would have made it easier. Probably could have gotten some sort of better indie situation together. Because we were all trying to get on those indie labels at the time, the big ones. Def Jux, Rhyme Sayers, Quantum, Anacon. Like they were like big four, big five that were responsible for a lot of the music and content that we all consumed even as we were rapping. So it would have helped me coalesce a better fan base, whatever. But that's not, there are plenty of MCs who did way better than me who never even competed in Scribble Jam. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I'm just trying to be nuanced here. Like, I want to be fair. I think I can acknowledge that at the time, that was super fucking heartbreaking to me and very infuriating and felt extremely unfair, and I was really angry. At the same time, it has to be said, and you got to edit it this way too, please, that it is not the fault of either of those people, and both of those people did a lot of other things in their respective career and life arcs a lot better than me. And as a man, I can acknowledge that. I think a lot of rappers are immature and they never could. They just be like, you fuck you, like forever. You know what I mean? I talked to Mac before I went to jail on Facebook or whatever. And, we kind of came to the same conclusion. We had talked before then too. It was never beef. You know what I mean? He said something like, we met each other in a really weird way. Like we were trading insults at each other. Like we were like 17th century, like dueling, like, Renaissance or romantic poets. He's like, strange way to meet a guy for the first time when you're both 19 years old. Yeah. And he said to me, he gave me my flowers. He was like, you were a stand-up dude on the situation that is actually more notable than anything I did musically. He was like, you're a stand-up dude. You did what you had to do to feed your family. You did the right thing. You didn't do anything wrong. He's like, you have to take this L, unfortunately. It's fucked up. But like, I see you. You're a stand-up guy. You're a real man. And, I was like, I appreciate you. I hope your family's good. I hope everything's going well with you. And that's, I don't know if I think I might have talked to him briefly since I came back, but that's kind of like where we left it. And that's all good. It could have helped make me. It did not break me. I'm responsible for what did or didn't happen with me. I guess that's the TLDR answer. I saw that, there was a hip hop group before us in Pittsburgh called Strict Flow, and they had a few small European tours, like short in duration. But they told me when they came back, and they were like pretty established. They sold units. They sold like 5-figure vinyl, like whatever. They almost had a situation where they got signed to a major. I mean, they were a very coherent, cohesive group that was like one of the best live performing groups I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they made really good quality music too. They told me that they were like, yo, we went to England, we went to Germany, like whatever. It's great over there. The fans are much more receptive. I also grew up in kind of a bohemian household. So I had traveled to Europe a lot as a kid with my parents. I grew up in a privileged bohemian household where my dad was an executive, because a lot of kids grow up like in the arts. They're not lucky like I was. So I had seen how the culture in Europe was. I was always fascinated with hip hop in foreign countries. Like I always thought that was really cool that they were doing it. And I saw the parallel between the jazz men of old and the beat poets. Because, the other thing was like, despite all the bullshit I was on, I've always been a reader ever since, because that's my mom and me. Like my mom, again, super reader, really cool person. She was always reading books, always reading different new cool books. So I read all the beat poets, all that stuff. All those guys spent large portions of their life in exile, like artistic exile in some like little apartment in Paris on their own bullshit, being creative. And I was like, that's cool. I want that. So I had the real world example of like guys literally like in my neighborhood that had done it. It's like trying to break into anything now that I think about it. Cause like I watch like a lot of like comedy reels now on YouTube and stuff like that. And you hear people talking about the stand-ups. It's the exact same shit. Like who's big, who's not, who's rising, who's falling, who's trying to get booked, who's on this tour, who's aligning in Austin, those comics as opposed to LA. Underground hip hop was the exact same way. You know what I mean? So like Icon and I, who we actually started out as enemies too, and then became like super tight friends, like brothers. He's a very quick thinker and he processes information extremely quickly and he makes quick conclusions that are usually accurate, which is why he's fantastically wealthy and successful today.
Icon the mic.
Yeah. You're talking about, probably one of the smartest guys ever to enter into the whole arena, and his life bears that out. So Icon was able to synthesize information very quickly, and so was I think. So we would talk about it all the time and be like, yeah, we need to get over there. Like we need to go overseas. We saw other people performing. Now the internet's starting to become more of a thing. It's opening up where you can see, posts, vlogs on, very basic shit on MySpace, photos. The crowds always look good. They always look packed. Dudes are talking about they're making money over there. This looks like where it needs to go. So it was like 2005. I just finished college, 04, 05. Yeah, I bought a ticket a month out. I started just hammering the foreign message boards. Every country had an underground hip hop message board. So I would just make a thing. I used to have to like learn enough of the language because this is like before really reliable translation. I have to learn enough of the language to get myself in. And then I would either ask for help from people that I had met on MySpace or Facebook, or I was email corresponding with. And then I would make a profile and I'd post. And I would say, hey, I'm an American MC. Here's my stuff that I've done. This is who I am. There weren't really like links back then per se. And I'd be like, I'm trying to do a show in your country. Like, here are my dates of availability. The planes, the biggest one was always a travel. So it was like, we could do that, but we can't get you a plane ticket. Like, you're not big enough, but planes paid for. And back then you could get those Eurorail passes they were the low, like couple $100, 3 weeks of unimpeded travel around like 17 or 18 contiguous countries. So I became like the master logistics guy. I just figured out like what we could do or what I could do in a day, as long as you didn't sleep, if you were comfortable, just you did all your sleeping on the train, you could really get very far in one day to another. So yeah, I started lining them up. I went over. I think the first show I ever did in Europe, where was it? It was in Holland. It was in the Netherlands somewhere. And then it was like my next show was in fucking Slovenia. Like I had to go across, like my routing looked like, you ever see those like montages of when the Muppets like travel and like everything's like a squiggly line that goes in a circle and there's like sound effects like beep, beep, it was like, my shit was literally like that. It was just I was just booking it based on where I could get the shows. And then I was figuring out by any means necessary how I could get to the next venue before the next show. But over time, I got my feet, I did it. It worked out well. I made a lot of fans over there. I made a lot more traction over there than I did in America. So as soon as I got back, I was like, gotta do another one. Did that, do another one. Did that, do another one. Now I got contacts. Things are starting to firm up a little bit. I still don't have a booking agent, but I'm starting to like really like, and I'm learning a lot. I'm learning about the scenes of the country and who are the notable independent rappers there. And I'm making contact with them, and then they can get you. You meet one guy from a country like that, he can get you the whole country. It's just like selling drugs. You meet one guy from a certain neighborhood or college, he can get you that whole college if it's the right one. And you make it, an exchange that they feel is beneficial to them and they like you. Same thing, opens it up.
A lot of artists that became popular out of Pittsburgh, a lot of them are a lot younger than you. Mm-hmm. But do you consider yourself kind of an OG to that newer class? And you have any stories of working with artists like Wiz Khalifa, Real Deal, Mac Miller?
Well, I mean, I knew Real Deal from the freestyle scene because he came in a little bit after me. He's a little bit younger than me. Wiz and Mac, I knew primarily. I didn't, it's funny, he's like, Mac's Jewish and from like Point Breeze. He's like grew up right across the way from me. Obviously, like I met him plenty of times. I did not have like a close relationship with him at all. I was super tight with a bunch of people who were around Mac, like Willie Whips, his manager, Bill Niels, shout out to Bill. You know what I mean? Like those are dudes that I have, you know, a long-standing relationship and friendship with. So I was in and around all of that while it was happening. And I also knew some of the people at Rostrum were older Jewish guys who went to high school at Alderdice before me, who were on the business side. They're, you know, and the ones, you know, Wiz was really one of the main discoverers of Wiz was Chad, who was one of the producers from Strict Flow. It's a small, so like I was definitely very aware of what was happening, whatever. One of the reasons I wasn't deeply embedded at that point was I was busy selling weed. Like I had already kind of moved on. I was still like making music. I was making music with BZE. We did Time Capsule. I would still jump out and do some like freestyle shows overseas or whatever. But my track of my life focus had changed. So I was interested and I was certainly supportive. I was super happy that dudes from Pittsburgh were getting on. You know what I mean? But it wasn't really like my war to fight to some extent. I was much more concerned with who was running the weed game in Pittsburgh and how much money I could make every day. That was my focus was more, but no, they were all around. Like I had that trap on South Fairmount Street and I used to live in the apartments above it. And Will was there all the time. Tree J was there all the time. Oh, I mean, dudes from the Taylor gang, again, like I was super tight with Lonnie and I was tight with Sledge. You know what I mean? Like they'd come through. DJ, Lon's brother, Mr. Dave, who was with Lon's grandma. Graham, to this day, Lonnie's grandma, she always called me her Jewish grandson. I'd be down Hazelwood all the time with them, bring through weed, smoke, whatever. So like I was definitely like in that milieu, like in that mix, but I was just in a different way at that point.
Gotcha. There's a story where you wrote a movie treatment that was picked up by Cameron.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that situation? What happened?
The first movie treatment I did was for this drug trafficking organization that was based on the west side of the city. And they had a guy, I think the older brother was funding it for his younger brother. His younger brother was creative and he wanted to try and do some different stuff. And he did a really good job in the movie. James Johns. It was called Undergrad. It got made. It got picked up. It kind of became like hood classic in Pittsburgh, and it was like Good Will Hunting, but like with like heroin dealers. So it was about like a tough streetwise heroin dealing guy from the hood that gets out of prison and then takes some sort of evaluatory test that says he's a genius, and then he has to go to school at Carnegie Mellon, which is like an Ivy League institution, and then the cultural conflict therein, or as well as you could tell that story for $50,000 with a bunch of amateur actors or whatever. The guy who directed it actually was a really cool dude. He was a commercial director, but he had done like 10 years upstate in New York for killing somebody, I think. It's wild. I can't like believe the people I've met and all the wild shit that's happened. But yeah, so Undergrad led to, I'm trying to remember how that happened because the director, Dan Myers, was the one that facilitated me doing Undergrad. And I did that right when I came into law school, like right when I started, first week of law school. And I remember writing the script for it or whatever and being like, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I just started law school like 5 days ago. I was like, this is way cooler. I think there was a woman named Georgina who was a producer on the Undergrad project, and she had links back to New York City with Cameron or whatever. So yeah, Cameron, she contacted me, or Cameron, Freaky Zeke. First it was like Freaky Zeke and her, then eventually Cameron came in the conversation, and they had me do a treatment for, I think, the film. They said it was going to be Killer Season, whatever, but it turned out being Percentages was the name of the movie. I did not write the script, but I did the whole plot. I did the whole treatment, all the characters, whatever. And I put an Easter egg in there just in case I didn't get paid, which was what happened, actually. I didn't realize the movie got made until like one day. I think someone told me that the movie got made. He was like, he made a movie. Oh, you know what it was? There's this Albanian dude who is from an influential clan in Tirana, Albania. I know you're like, where the fuck is this going? But I was on tour in Hungary, and the guy that facilitated all my shows there, he was really into super underground lyrical hip hop, like Cannabis, whatever. He was Albanian, but he lived in Hungary, and his dad was an extremely powerful and wealthy guy in Tirana, Albania. and they lived in this beautiful pre-war, like they had like half a floor of this amazing apartment building in Budapest. And the dude was going to London School of Economics, and he was he just seemed to be like extremely influential. Like he always had like bodyguards around him and stuff. Like I was never really like sure about, whatever. So I wrote him as an Albanian gangster into the movie, like as a joke between him and I, and as an Easter egg, like just because like I knew that they would never change that shit. One day I was trying to find him on Facebook because I hadn't been out there in like 3 or 4 years, and I typed his name in to Google, and this random actor in like a Cameron straight to DVD movie came up, and I was like, you motherfuckers. So I sent an email to all of them, and I was like, yo, caught you in 4K. Well, that wasn't a thing back then, but whatever. I was like, yo, like I put my boy's name in here just so I could, like whatever. I'm like, you didn't pay me, like da whatever. So he hit me back, and he was like, look, I got you. Just come out to New York City, and he booked me a flight on JetBlue like that night. Like it was like 2 days after we started talking again. And I actually flew to New York City, got picked up by the driver with the sign holding my name and the black livery joint, driven to North Jersey, went to the Dipset mansion. I actually was in the Dipset mansion. And then we talked for a while, him and I, about other projects. He drove me around in his Bentley. We went, we went somewhere and we smoked weed, ordered Domino's, and watched Steph Curry torch the Knicks at the Garden. And I remember he had crazy weed, creeper, old head weed. Shit put me under completely. I was so fucking torched. Must have probably drank the ranch dressing in front of him. Probably. And I was like so stoned. I was like, oh, yeah, movies, delicious. But yeah, so then basically like he paid me up for everything I had done. He gave me, I think, a little bit more money. And then I did another thing for him where I wrote a script for a horror movie that never came out, oh my God. It was like the most demented. He was like a brain damaged serial killer, like living in rural Florida at a gas station who had traumatic injuries from his high school football career. And he was like abducting women. I remember writing this and being like, I was like, you really want to? He's like, yeah, make it worse. It was so cooked, bro. But nah, that's about the extent of. I mean, there's a bunch of sub stories in there we probably don't have time for, but that is the general arc of what I did with him.
So you were touring back and forth, making money, coming back, spending it, going back, and
it's a constant loop.
And then ultimately decided to become a lawyer, knowing how people talk about how difficult law school is and passing the bar. How is that a backup plan for you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't make good decisions. I think my life probably bears that out, right? I have like an undue amount of confidence in my ability to tackle situations that are probably, frankly, beyond my intellectual depth or like character or work ethic. This was one of them, for sure. I mean, I just saw, again, in Squirrel Hill, where I grew up, there were a lot of lawyers. A lot of Jews are lawyers. And I sold weed a little bit, but I didn't really want to do it anymore. I hadn't even come close to where I got with it eventually. The rap thing was drying up because the physical media was dying. We were kind of in this like age, interstitial, whatever age between the physical and the digital. Like people weren't getting paid off streams yet. And that wasn't upping people's notoriety, but people weren't buying physical media anymore because like you could get everything on YouTube. There's kind of like a 2-3 year dip. I didn't know how to navigate that. So like I'm going out there and I'm not selling the CDs that I need to live because the show money only gets you so far. It's the selling the merch that really like powers you onward in that game. You know what I mean? So I knew I needed to do something else. And I saw other friends, parents, and people we knew. They seemed to have, they had houses in Squirrel Hill, so they were swinging multi-6-figure lifestyles, putting kids through college, whatever. And they worked for themselves. A lot of them, it was their own firm, so they didn't have a boss. So as torturous as it was and as hellish as I knew it was going to be, I had no idea how bad it was going to be or how bad I was going to be at it. But I saw that and I was like, shit, maybe that should be me. I could do that. I'll be a criminal defense attorney. I was like, streetwise Jew, close to the streets, politically extremely liberal and left wing. Work for yourself, but it's a really small business, just like you and a secretary, maybe one other lawyer. Like work really hard, but like, it's like you're on your own shit though. You can like kind of live your life the way you want to, not like in a corporate culture. No one can fire you. I was like, I saw plenty of examples of it. I was like, okay, I'd give this a shot, right? Like I couldn't keep flipping the same $4,000, $5,000 on tour forever. Like people have told me my whole life I'm extremely smart, like, or I don't know. I mean, I think that's like very subjective. I think everyone feels in their life at various points like they're very smart or very stupid. Maybe sometimes often in the same hour. But like, no, I've always been a horrible student, trash student. I was like, like it's so funny. It just shows like white privilege, social promotion, and class, like what it can do for somebody. And not even like my family's not like the Rockefellers. Like, I mean, my dad's not paid like any of the people like on TV. He's just like a moderately paid guy that's had a good job. No, that's not true. He's a high-paid guy that has had a great job his whole life and works extremely hard, saved well, made good stock decisions. But he's not like some mogul or something with like infinite money. You know what I mean? But even that, with me being a white male from that type of background, I failed out of high school, still got into college. Failed out of college, still got into law school. Failed out of law school. No one helped me pass the bar. I will say that. I did study and got the bar done. And I passed all these things. Like I didn't, it wasn't like whatever, but I was always at the bottom of my class and everything. This has been universal. Anytime I interface with an institution, I always sink to the absolute bottom and have disciplinary problems. It's probably indicative of being like a sociopath or something. You just like can't abide by anyone's rules.
It's really interesting because you made the commercial, thanks Dan. It went viral.
Yeah, sure did.
But it's kind of a testament to like your personality. Like where did that come from to be like so unapologetically just like authentic, regardless of trying to fit in or? I
mean, it's just always kind of how I don't wire as anyone the way they are. I don't know. I always had to show up somewhere new for school. And after a while, you get tired of pretending and you're like, fuck it. This is you. I got to that point when I was 15 years old after doing this shit 2 or 3 times where I probably reached, like other people are probably having this epiphany in their early 40s. Like, I'm me, you could take it or leave it. Like, someone's tearful Facebook post or a realization that, some girl crying, filming herself or whatever. Like, I've been there, sis. I feel it. I came to that conclusion way earlier, I guess. I just never, I stopped giving a fuck. It's not that I never gave a fuck. I just stopped giving a fuck a long time, I think, before other people did. So like, what I'm on is what I'm on. If you like it, that's great. I really could use your help, your support, your engagement, certainly your money. But if you don't, that's cool. I don't care. There's nothing you can like say or do to me that's ever going to stop me from doing what I want or need to do. Like, you can kill me or put me in jail. That's about it. Even then, I'm still not going to cooperate with you. That's just how I am, I guess. I don't know.
It's a gift and a curse.
It is. It's led to a lot of pain in my life.
Right.
It's made my life miserable. There are a lot of times I've been up late night crying, wishing I was fucking dead because of it. I'm not going to act like, oh yeah, win some, you lose some. Did it my way, baby. Frank Sinatra, no regret. I got nothing but regrets. I've infinite regrets. I fucked so many things up so horrifically. So bad at so many things or whatever. I'm not going to sit here and be all sanguine like about it or whatever. But it also kind of is what it is because like you realize at a certain point, like this is who I am, man. Like stop beating me up over it or you can, but I'm not going to listen to you anymore. You got to leave me alone.
Yeah. Well,
go over there.
Some people would admire and desire to have some of those characteristics because, they worry so much and it's like, I wish I didn't care so much.
But here's the thing though, I worry all the time too. I just worry about different things. Like I worry like, oh my fucking God, is this going to work? Another risk, like another like gambling everything you have, your life, your freedom, your last penny, all your resources, like your reputation. Is this going to hit or not? Like, you know what I mean? And it's not like really an exciting feeling. Like after a while, you're not addicted to the rush. You're just like, well, like what else do I have?
You just actually take those risks.
I just take those risks. Yeah, I always will step up and take those risks habitually.
So eventually that wasn't conducive to getting more clients as an attorney. So
Well, no. I actually got a lot of clients off of that. I could have done way more with it. Again, a huge fuck up I did was I didn't recognize, because again, this was like 13, 14. The content era was just starting. But I didn't have the vision to see that I had created like truly viral content. There were people from LA, other Jews, hitting me up like, yo, you need to like write a trashy book, let cameras come in your apartment and do reality TV. And like my girl and I were like, fuck no, her for privacy's reasons and me because like, well, I'm trapping. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really want people to see, like, I wasn't huge then, but I like might have like 40 to 100 pounds near at any given point. Like, I don't need people to see this shit. That was incredibly stupid. Had I locked in, I would have been one of the earlier. I may not even be doing anything related to law. I could be doing like food reviews or like videos of dogs by now. People can rebrand. So Icon said he was like, you threw a fucking party, like the bangerest party of all time. And then you never had a house for anyone to show up to for it. Like everyone just came to a field. Like that was again, perfect metaphor.
Fire festival.
Yeah, no, totally fire festival. I mean, like everyone showed up or whatever. I think it was still entertaining. That's another thing. I think I delivered on the entertainment part. But yeah, no, I fucked up. I should have just gone into content hard. I could have been like the first guy in that space. There's so much more I could have been doing right now. I'd had hundreds of thousands of followers conservatively. 10, 11 years of doing this shit off of that. I should have just immediately left turn, fuck weed, fuck law, LA content. I probably could have stumbled upwards to 5 or 6 mil pretty quickly, enough to live comfortably in a nice mid-century modern ranch in a comfortable neighborhood somewhere in California and never really actually have to do an honest day's work the rest of my life and never worry about going to prison. Could have done that.
Well, let's talk about something you were good at.
Yeah.
You were getting clients off of the commercial, but it was becoming more difficult.
Well, I had a lot of prejudice against me and bias due to the commercial. The legal establishment in my area and the state felt like, it was disrespectful towards the system. So I'd engendered a lot of enmity as well as notoriety. And then the other problem was that I wasn't a great lawyer. like small detail, but I might have been a much better one over time. If I was going to be in a movie, it would be like I was this amazing lawyer and like winning shit left and right. I wasn't terrible. It wasn't like I was like a bum who was like throwing people under the bus or whatever. It's just that's a really hard job. Guys do that job for 30 or 40 years and they might only get good 15 in, it takes a long time to get good at something as hard as that.
Yeah, and you started with your own practice right away.
Right away, because the legal economy had collapsed in sync with the national economy in 2008. So we went through law school, and instead of everyone getting jobs, no one got jobs. So a lot of us were stuck from the jump hanging a shingle out, when in reality, people like us before we all would have been absorbed in as an apprenticeship model with a small but steady paycheck, would have built it up over time. Instead, I was stuck from literally the day I got my bar card having to move and groove, but I was already selling weed. So.
And then you pivoted to opening a dispensary called The Store?
Yeah. So the store happened like everything in my life, with a bunch of fried cartoon character type people just coalescing in the right place at the right time. So I had an apartment at 351 South Fairmount Street. I had lived in both apartments on the first floor at one point with my girl, who's now my wife. There was a guy who lived under us. He had the whole basement. White working class people in Pittsburgh are called yinzers because they say yins instead of yous or y'all. That's like yins guys going downtown, going up on their stellar game. We had a yinzer, but he wasn't a typical yinzer. Yinzers are mostly really fried too. They're a fried subgroup of people. And I say that with all affection. They're fucking crazy. They're the Pittsburgh equivalent of like white people from Southie. Like they're nuts. A lot of them are really good people, but you're just gonna have they're gonna do a lot of wild shit. A lot of drugs, a lot of fighting, a lot of, not listening to rules. This guy's name was Dale. he had been a steel worker back when the steel industry was huge and was, the mono employer for everybody here. He was a position of some importance in like the steelworkers union. When the industry collapsed, him and a bunch of super radical union workers aligned with these left-wing ministers, and they formed the Mon Valley Citizens Council, and they started trying to consequence the steel company owners for what they felt like was outsourcing their jobs and destroying the way of life for their entire community while lining their own pockets. So they started showing up to these guys' mansions in those neighborhoods we drove through earlier, like Squirrel Hill and Shadyside, and throwing like, I'm not talking about a few, I'm talking about like half a swimming pool worth of animal entrails and blood like on them during like garden parties and stuff. And it got to the point where they were barricading themselves inside buildings with like guns and having armed standoffs with the police. And I think they even blew up part of a bank once. I mean, these guys were wild. These guys were left-wing fighters, like street labor. It's so funny now because politically that population has shifted so heavily towards Trump. And I'm not here to make value judgments or whatever, but Dale was old school. Like he was like a Willie Nelson, Arlo Guthrie, like hippie yinzer radical. Now, he also was like a super fucking yinzer, and towards the end of his life, he also loved Trump, but that's the inherent contradiction of people. I'm not here to explain it, but just to give you an idea of like what Dale was like. He lived under me when I was in law school. So this dude's always blasting fucking the Rolling Stones and Skynyrd. I'm always smelling bad weed, wafting up to my apartment. He always has like on like a bandana and shit. He had a Pontiac Sunfire out back that was all fucked up. And he talked like the Macho Man Randy Savage and you like, Dan, come down here, brother. I gotta talk to you, man. Like that was how he talked. One day he used his cane to knock on his roof, my floor. So I came down there. And I was like, did I bother you? Like, because I didn't know him that well. And he was like, look, man. He's like, I know you got good pot up there. I can smell it. He's like, I know you're doing something up there because I see people and hear people come in and out. All I'm asking you is you leave Dale an ounce and now Dale will get rid of it for you. So I left them, put an ounce down there, and in an hour, I had my money. So that organically, it was like that push it to the limit Scarface montage. Like I did that once. The next day I left him another ounce and another ounce and another ounce and another ounce. And then I realized I could trust this guy. So I had been stuck in my apartment for 21 hours a day just taking cat naps because I was trapping. Like I was working that hallway like a fucking monster. People had no idea how much weed I had in that crib because I'm selling it to you in eighths. But there were times where I had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of weed put up there and in a storage unit like down the way. And I'm just coming out in like basketball shorts with my laptop on, like studying, like whatever, just serving people eighths, grams, quarters, whatever. But I am making real money doing this, but no one sees me doing it because of how I'm living. I'm just stacking and trapping. That's all I cared about. Dale did two things. He opened me up where I could take off and like live my life more. But more importantly, by having a permanent place that people could go to, I could really mash the fucking gas on this thing and blow it wide open. Because now I don't have to like, how many people can I see in an hour? Well, I can only see so many people, but Dale never leaves. So he could see everyone in the fucking world that I could get to come there. So this is like that push it to the limit Scarface montage. This goes from that to within a couple months later, there is a full-fledged dispensary in Dale's basement called The Store. We have shifts, we have hours, we have a dispatch system, we have security protocol, we got the liquor store door at the buzzer, we have the weaponized hot water pipes that we can drop like the 220, 190 degree water on intruders. We got a slot for him to pop the shoddy through if shit gets real. Like we had day shift, night shift, count shift, managers. It blew up really quickly because there were no legal dispos at that point in the city. And everyone's weed man sucked. You know, they're typical call you back 3 hours later, sitting on their couch, demotivated. We're hitting every sale. That was my philosophy. HEL, hit every lick. That was part of my like PowerPoint presentation I'd give to people who work for me. I'd be like, I don't care if it's half a gram at 4 o'clock in the fucking morning, we're making that sale. It's 500 pounds. I don't care. We're making that sale. I mean, at this point, I wasn't doing 500 pounds, but any amount of weed that you want. If I have it, you're getting it. I don't care.
This was just your work ethic.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I saw a lane. It took a long time to make the weed work too. You know, I'm selling it all through law school. I'm not making that much money. I'd made money off it in Philly previously. I saw that there was a way you could do it. It just took a while. And I saw that the wholesale market was dominated. There were already established players, a lot of whom I knew, who had stayed in the city, they never went away to college, or they went to college in the city, and they were landing their boxes, which is 100 pounds, half boxes, 50 pounds, whatever. This is back then, the prices were high. These are usually outs from Cali. They're putting 3-4 points on everything. So they're grooving, and it's all set. No one's getting let into that. That's a good lifestyle. I realized that the place to accrue customers was at the bottom, because the people that are buying 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds of weed, they are picky and they are well-resourced. They have a lot of, even back now, it's infinitely crazier in terms of that, in terms of competition. But even back then, they had a lot of options. You know, they had their own lines. What could you do for them that they can't do for themselves? But the person who's buying a cut, they just want a good, reliable person to provide it to them whenever they want it. If you give them that, they are never leaving, and they're going to tell all their friends. So I can't take the turret of the castle, but I can start chipping away at that foundation. I got a blind spot there. So that's what I did. I built my empire up on a trap. That was my base. And that enabled me to start smacking those people at the top off one by one economically, because to sustain their lifestyle, they needed to put 2, 3, 4, 5 points on their P's. Once I built my trap up to the point where my shit is just printing me $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a day in pure profit to my pocket, I can now target their operations by buying the same quantity and grade of weed that they are and charging $1, $100 a pound. Then they cut their number to $3.75. I cut mine to 50 cents a pound. They cut their number to $3.25. I cut my number to 25 cents a pound profit. Like, they can't hang with me, because as they cut it, their lifestyle is crumbling. I could sell this shit for free all day long. I don't care. I'm making my, and you can't steal my customers. None of you have you're all vacationing in Thailand and going to Palm Springs and trying to fuck girls in Vice magazine and doing all that, like whatever. I'm in the trap all day, and with my trap workers, I'm trapping. Like, you're not going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go steal a bunch of LPNs that are going into work and they each need 3 grams and some edibles. You're not taking them. You don't want them. You just want it all. But you're not going to work for what I have. But what you have, I've targeted you now. I see how it works, and I'm taking it. And that's what I did.
It was all good until it wasn't.
Well, I mean, a lot of bullshit happened in between. I mean, like, Dale died. A lot of people got arrested in between. Like, you know, when you start going up to the level where you're doing, especially back then, it was much more illegal than it was now. I started doing hundreds of pounds, like whatever. People are getting knocked off. Like, shipments are getting lost. Money's getting fucked up. It wasn't like it was smooth sailing, but it was largely smooth sailing. About 2018, started to see some, it wasn't directly related to me, but started to see some weird shit happen. One of my main competitors, he got popped on a state case, and then that case went federal early 2019. He got indicted. Then one of the guys who was like one of my main lieutenants, like big customer, and just a dude who was in my organization, he got set up on a controlled buy by the state police or whatever, or the attorney generals, state police attorney general's agents. So, you know, he's cased up. We're starting to see more enforcement. There hadn't been any enforcement on weed. There hadn't been anything really going on for 5, 6, 7 years, except random people getting caught. Now it looks like there's operations targeting specific people. I remember a guy got popped getting a bunch of wax sent to his house, either by a postman or it was a driver on a controlled delivery. And they said they took him down. I think it was the state police. It wasn't the feds. They took him down or whatever to question him. And when he got out, he called up my boys and my young dudes who were working for me. These dudes were taking hundreds of pounds of cheap weed at a time and pushing it through the colleges. That was their sphere. And they were like, yo, I don't think this dude's lying, because he was talking about people that he didn't even know. He said that they had like a photo array on the table, and he was like, you were on it, you were at the top. He's like, we were like one rung below you. These guys were over there. So it was probably, enough people had gotten caught that they probably knew by that point, but still nothing. It's weed though, too. Then I got really unlucky because they were targeting that gang in Braddock, the SCO gang. The SCOs were selling crack and heroin, and they had guns, and they were shooting here and there allegedly. They put a full press on them with the county task force and the FBI Safe Street 6 organized crime drug enforcement task force or whatever. And they were buying weed off a guy who bought weed off a guy who bought weed off of my workers. So they followed them. Wiretap. The dude who's my customer talked into the other guy's wiretap. Tracker on the truck. That brought them to my Squirrel Hill location, which is where the wholesale came in. The retail was the store. We didn't have hundreds of pounds at the store. The wholesale spot, there would be hundreds of pounds in there, if not more, on any given day. And they clocked our re-up, and then that Friday, driver came, dropped it off. Driver left. They hit the driver right when he got on the parkway. He had $469,475 in cash. Then they came back and hit the spot with a bang search warrant, and we had been under surveillance. They got my workers, and that's when everything started to spiral out. I didn't get popped then. I got away. I knew things were bad. I mean, because once I saw the federal paperwork, I was like, this is going to go federal. 3 weeks later, they indicted all those guys, and they indicted the gang in Braddock together. Everyone got indicted in like a big indictment. I was not indicted. 2.5 years later, enough people had told on me that I had been ratted into the conspiracy, and they indicted me and one other guy who had been there that day. But to give you a brief illustration of how the federal system works, they had me on no wiretaps, no controlled buys, no text messages, nothing. And I was never physically caught with any marijuana or cash on me, ever. I was in front of the trap house, the big stash house that day. I went inside of it, but on video, I just knocked on the window to be let inside by someone else. It wasn't like I, owned the place or whatever, or didn't on record. And I helped someone carry a box of cash, and I shook hands with a bunch of people. That was the extent. If they were just going off of what they had, what they saw of me, that is it. That is all they had. The rest of it was people filling in the blanks for them. And that's why I got indicted. Well, first, when they indict you, they actually indict you in secret. It's a sealed indictment, which is terrifying to think of. All that like QAnon bullshit, people are so the sealed indictments. I mean, that is true. Every district has numerous sealed indictments. They're just waiting to unseal them on people and pop them. So there's guys moving around, living their life, thinking they're not about to go to prison for a long time. But really, the sword of Damocles is hanging over their head, and it's about to swing. I got indicted July, August of 21. They didn't tell me I was indicted until about 3 or 4 weeks later. My lawyer called me one night. I was smoking a bowl, and my wife was watching Real Housewives of the Potomac. And I got a call on my phone. It was from my federal criminal defense attorney. And this is like 2.5 years after everything happened. I knew. I was like, what's up? He was like, I hate to tell you this, man, but you just got indicted.
Now, there were 3 separate instances over a longer period of time where the prosecutors were asking you to cooperate.
Yeah, which is par for the course for federal stuff, because in federal stuff, most people do snitch. The time they throw at you is extreme. You don't get any breaks on it. There's no parole. The only thing that really gets you out from under a federal mandatory is cooperation. Like, they don't care about like any extenuating circumstances, your health, your family, your prior good deeds, people who might need you, they don't give a fuck. Are you telling or not? There's a couple vehicles for you to tell. Like, there's like the 35B after conviction, there's like the safety valve, there's the 5K1, whatever it is, but it all boils down to the same thing, like to what level. Some guys out there actively setting people up on bail, like that, all that shit happens. It was always an option that was on the table. In fact, at one point, I actually knew prior to being indicted, this was years before, I knew people were telling on me. You know, I had knowledge that people were telling on me. I was aware. I mean, some of it was just common sense, just how things were shaping up and how they were moving. I had my lawyer reach out to them and I was like, look, I will turn myself in today. I want the 5 years. Just give me the 60 months. Get me out of the way. Let's get this shit the fuck over with. I'll just come in and plead guilty. But I'm not telling on anybody. I don't want any consideration. I just don't want to dangle out here endlessly. And they were like, no. They were like, you can only come in if you want to cooperate. So I was like, man, I went off. I was like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Like, I'm not doing this.
You could have got like no time or probation or something if you had.
Yeah, probably, honestly. I mean, I don't know what was on the table because I never broached it. But so the safety valve gets you out of the mandatory minimum. It puts you in the guidelines. And then like 5K1 stuff, like that could get you pretty, because that's substantial assistance. You get that letter from the prosecutors to the judge saying you substantially assisted them in the prosecution of other people. And that gets people oftentimes a much lower sentence. I will say this, to get no time on a mandatory federal drug trafficking sentence, even a 5-year, even for weed, you have to be a huge rat. Like you got to be telling. Because most people tell in the feds and they still get time. Plenty of people in the feds with fucked up paperwork that are still doing years. And that's not like a strange phenomenon. That's why paperwork is so important to us in the feds. That's why when you get with people from your city or your area, you got to show them your paperwork so they know that you're straight. Because all of us got put in here by people who knew us, who flipped on us. So we take that very seriously and personally.
Were there the same people in the judicial system that you work with as an attorney? Like, was there a connection to that where they were setting more of an example for you? Or
well, I mean, the thing is that like I got the mandatory minimum for my charge. I wonder if they would have been so assiduous about tracking me down for selling weed 2.5 years ago had I just been John Smith. Or would they have just been like, all right, we got 5 guys on this already. Here's a file, whatever, it's there, but we have other priorities like COVID stuff, human trafficking, especially of young women, firearms, and fentanyl, like big things affecting this region. You know, as opposed to like, let's pay the FBI to follow around this guy that used to sell weed and his wife for years and put cameras outside their house and have informants call him on the phone and try and get him to talk about stuff, like all the little crazy things that they tried to do to me. If I hadn't made that commercial, I don't know if the energy, it's not like they charged me with more. I did my mandatory minimum because I had no criminal record. I couldn't get below it if I talked, and I wouldn't talk. I didn't get above it. So to be fair, just to be factual, that's what it was. I wonder if they would have gone through the whole situation of charging someone retroactively with selling weed in 2019 and 2021 if I had just been a random dude. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know.
can you describe what was it like going into federal custody?
Well, like when I went to the camp to start. You know, camps are the lowest level. It still is like unbelievably horrible and terrifying. Like I don't care. Like I've never done time before. You know, to a guy who'd been behind walls with razor wire and gun towers or whatever, probably been like, this ain't shit. I've never done a day in my life. So being in a camp for me is like being a fucking Alcatraz with like a life sentence. You know what I mean? Or yeah, like San Quentin or whatever. I left my house that morning. I said goodbye to my wife. I tearfully promised her I would come back through that door eventually. I was like, I will come, I promise you, I will come right back through that door one day. I was like, I promise you. The dudes who shot the commercial picked me up because they were like filming me going into prison. Gotta make content, man. Gotta have content. So they drove me to West Virginia. I'm on the phone with people the whole time, text messaging, like, I love you, talk to you later, love you, talk to you later, love you, talk to you later. I was already in contact with the Pittsburgh guys in the prison because like everyone has phones. So I already had a phone for me there. So I was just basically like, I have the same phone I surrendered with. I just kept it the whole time. Like I kept it on because it was my old phone. I wanted it back when I got out of here. I gave that to my boy. I felt like I was like surrendering like my 6 guns or my sword. I was like, shh, here, take my phone. I walked up to I called my girl one last time. I remember I was in like a trailer park across the street from the prison. I was like, I love you. I'm about to come down. I'm gonna call you as soon as I can. I promise. And then I gave everything up, walked to the guard shack, and was like, yo, I'm turning myself in. He's like, all right. Went through the procedure, walked down the hill, went through R&D, was sitting in a holding cell in some like Jackie Chan slippers and the Chomo fucking pants with the elastic and the blue shirt they give everybody when they come in. And I'm like, man, what the fuck did I get myself into? Walk around the compound, go to the unit for the first time, go inside. It's like pitch black, real tight, cramped, like the belly of a ship. Dudes are sleeping in the middle of the day. People look kind of weird, like missing key parts of their face, some of them, like downtrodden population. Everyone's fucking fried. I realize I'm going to be fried like them soon. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. I remember fiending so hard. I was waiting for the Pittsburgh dudes to find me because I knew they had the phone. I knew my one boy because I already talked to him. He's like, I got an iPhone for you, whatever. I was like, where's the fucking phone? I was like, give me the phone. Which is why I got 3 phone shots and spent 8.5 months in the shoe. Anyone watches who's in prison with me will just roll their eyes because they'll be like, this dude was so bad at prison. He was so terrible at being in jail. He had none of the skill set to be in jail. And he was just jumping the fuck out there, committing the most serious offense you can on the compound, which is the 108, the phone, possession of a hazardous tool, the phone shot. I was on the phone all the fucking time, always had a phone on me, was leaving the building with the phone tucked, just like moving around outside with the phone, always on the fucking phone, always in the shoe, always getting shipped up a security level. Did 18 extra months because of the fucking phone. You know what I mean? Or went through 40 phones in the time I was down. I could fill up a whole wall of the phones they took from me. The ones they caught me with and the ones I just found where we hid them. I'm the only one. I'm the only one who's on phone time or jack time, as we call it in the feds. But yeah, no, that was terrible. I was miserable there. It didn't matter. I was at a camp. I was still miserable.
What were the conditions like?
It was a lot better than being at the low in the sense that you could move around when you wanted to. There was no controlled movement. So as long as it wasn't an official recall and it wasn't the middle of the night, it wasn't 9 to say 5 something 6 in the morning, you could be out. Walking around. You didn't have to get permission to get unlocked out or wait for a move to come out of your unit. You wanted to go back and forth to the gym 20 times in a day, you could. You wanted to go all the way out to the edge of the softball field and sit alone, you could. There was nothing stopping you. And Morgantown was really pretty. You're in the middle of Dorsey's Knob State Park. There's a creek that runs through the middle of the camp called Coburn Creek, and there's these little Japanese-style bridges that link the housing units to the other side of the compound. There's trees, there's bear, there's deer, there's red-tailed hawks, there's giant turtles or tortoises or whatever. There's a lot of nature there, crazy amounts of nature. It's a beautiful place, but the staff is fucking horrible because they're all West Virginians, and they just stand on you. They treat you like shit. If they ran that place like a real camp, it would be the sweetest place ever to do time because the conditions are cool, but the way we were treated was horrific, super disrespectful. You know what I mean? Always searching, always on bullshit, really petty. And the one thing about a camp is they don't really check paperwork there, so it's just riddled with rats. People fucked up on the street, but honestly, almost even worse, people, even if your paperwork was good on the street, people who are there, they're a lot of them are institutional rats. They're too comfortable with staff and shit. So there's a lot of, you can't do shit there. At my other spot, dudes are going in the walls to hide phones using fucking hammers and improvised pickaxes and shit. There's a whole system of hiding phones. We're pirating electricity to charge our phones. Dudes are putting up knives and clavos and shit. Dudes are cooking liquor all day. Kind of more like a real prison swing, There's lookouts that we pay, lookout yells, Hondo, just short for caminando, Spanish for walking. Everyone looks like a war movie when someone says incoming. Dudes are just falling out of their bunks, running down the hallway with 5 phones and all kinds of contraband in their hands. Everything gets put up and it's Hogan's Heroes. As soon as the door opens up, everyone's just this. 400 guys in all their rooms in the hallway just whistling. The guard's meanwhile, he turns this corner and a guitar and a phone falls out of the ceiling. Someone's At Morgantown, they're just searching all the time. There's nowhere to hide anything really because you can't blast out clavos the same way. there's no fence, so theoretically you could leave to like go see your family, but like anyone who did would always get popped, not because they even got caught doing it, they just get told on later and then put under investigation. So it's kind of like, I don't know, choose your flavor of terrible. It's like the low is much more violent than the camp. Like you're gonna have people, try you. You're gonna see a lot of fucked up shit happen. Nothing like a medium or a pen. I mean, like mediums or pens it just ratchets up by like tenfold every level you go up. At a camp, there's like virtually none of that. So it's not that chaotic. It's quiet. It's calm. It's clean-ish,
People weren't checking paperwork, so more.
We would check paperwork. Pittsburgh did, but it was only amongst us. You know what I mean? Like you're not checking other people's. And it wasn't like we're going to check you in at the camp. It was just that like we wanted to be comfortable with who we were around. So like you knew who was a homie and who wasn't. That's all. We didn't have to be close. Like it was just like there was like a group of dudes like, most 20-ish, sometimes down to 12, 15, whatever. Core Pittsburgh guys, we all knew were solid. So like, we could kick it with each other. Like you knew you could trust them when you talked to them, that if there was a situation, they're going to have your back, like whatever. The higher up you go, and the people who weren't, they were just socially ostracized at a camp. When you go up to the low, it becomes real. Like 068, Western PA, they are not going, even at a low, like they're not going for any sort of cooperation, safety valve, 5K1, 35B. If they check you and they see your paperwork is weird, then you can't be there. They're going to make you leave. You might have a chance to get out yourself and tell the cop you got to go, or they're going to do it to you. They're going to put hands on you. They're going to make it happen. Happened many a time.
So recently, you started your 501c3 nonprofit.
Yeah. End of sentence. Yeah, I think that there is a gap in coverage for cannabis prisoners. I think there are a lot of people and good organizations with a lot of energy working towards freeing people, and trying to change the laws, but there's not a lot of help on the retail side. Like right now, I'm like on a pass from a halfway house filming this. It would be nice if like we could get more passes to go out and do things. It would be nice if we could get more halfway house time, have people lean on case managers to get us home quicker. It would be good if there was a pipeline to good employment, not just $16, $17 an hour employment. Like I'm talking like $85,000 to $110,000 a year employment for guys who did real time for weed. Like a pathway to a living wage job where you can take care of a family of 2 or 3 or 4 live a decent life or whatever. These are the type of things that no organization is really doing. So my goal, what I hope, is to try and start providing those services, or help to start to try to provide those services to people, because everyone is just trying for the home runs, it seems like. Appeals, compassionate releases, ineffective assistance counsels, all those, but no one's doing those day-to-day things, trying to get guys moved to a better prison, work on a better program placement, more halfway house time, more home confinement time. These are soft power things. And most importantly, most weed prisoners are coming home. Now, there's guys who are doing life or effective life. They need a lot of resources. Those entire organizations, like the big ones, they should really just be targeting those people, because it's going to take that much to get them the fuck out of where they are now. It takes pardons and law changes. For the guys who are doing 5s, 7s, 10s, whatever, it sucks, but I want a triage approach where I'm like, all right, you're going to get out. Let's make your bid comfortable as possible in any way we can. And then let's try and get you out of your bid as quickly as possible. No cooperation, not helping any fucking rats, but using the mechanisms of halfway house time, stuff like that. And then let's try and get you, most importantly, we got to get you into a job like the second you touch down, a good job, not a shit job. Like you got to hit into a real living wage job as soon as you come out of the halfway house, or even while you're in the halfway house. Start your training, ball rolling, like you're hired from prison. That's my goal, because then people aren't going to recidivate and their mental health and their family outcomes are going to be way better. I know that from being in the position myself and having a lot of people who love and care about me, but no one was really able to do that for me, and having to figure out that shit myself and how horrible that is to have to do after having done the time. So that's why I want to do it for the next person and the next and the next.
Some of these things the halfway house should be doing, but they don't.
Well, all of it, it's not just the halfway house, it's the BOP. The BOP is supposed to, on paper, be some form of corrections. FCI, Federal Correctional Institution. There is no correction in the BOP. The BOP is not about rehabilitation. The federal system particularly is about retributive punishment and coercion. They are just there to take drug dealers. They give these drug dealers murder sentences, and then they just smash you. They crush you. They give you 300 minutes of phone time a month, so you gotta have a cell phone to talk to your family in any meaningful way. They ship you around the country from fucking Nebraska to Alaska. You know what I mean? You never know where you're gonna end up month to month, day to day. You don't know. I can wake you up all the time, be like, pack up, you're gone. You know, they give you these super onerous conditions of incarceration, you know, the shit food, the no medical care, whatever. There is no meaningful programming. There's a few tiny programs that teach people construction and truck driving, but these are like little pinprick pilot programs at a few institutions. They are not broad-based. And honestly, what six-figure job, what living wage job, I'm gonna ask you, exists in 2025 and beyond where you are not interacting with a computer or a cell phone all the fucking time? You know what I mean? Like almost none, like really, like very, very few. So like, I understand that they can't let, you know, there's sex offenders, there's dangerous people there. They have to figure out some way to let people use the internet in a constructive way because that is literally the only way you make money now, especially if you're gonna have to work for yourself or if you have to market yourself for a job. So there can't be any meaningful rehabilitation the way the system's set up because the system is literally set up. It's left over from the 80s and the 90s war on drugs. It is to incapacitate large-scale drug dealers. Just put you on the fucking shelf. That's it.
What are your thoughts on all these corporate weed companies selling on the recreation market, knowing that you do a better job at it and you ended up doing time for that?
I don't like it, obviously. You know, again, it's a nuanced answer. It does make me angry. Largely, the weed companies themselves are not, I think people put too much blame on them and too little blame on the actual government. I think that the government, if the government enacted fair policy and law towards us in these situations, then that inequity and that bifurcation, that dual deal that they have where the weed companies can sell the weed and not get in trouble, and we sell the weed and break the same federal law and get smoked for it, that wouldn't be a reality. Do I think weed companies need to do way more for people like me? Absolutely, I do. Fuck yes, they do. They are deleterious. I should have a job at a weed company that pays well. Everyone else who gets out should have a job at a weed company that pays well. They should be hiring us before they hire anyone else, point blank. And if they got to fire some people and replace them with us, so be it. I will say that. But, and again, this is a nuanced answer, so I really need you to put all this in there. You can't leave it to private industry to fix social inequities. That's the job of the government. Like we didn't look to IBM and Coca-Cola and Xerox and Ford Motors in the 60s to end segregation. You know, we didn't look to JP Morgan or Rockefeller or Andrew Carnegie during the Civil War to end slavery. That's the job of the government. You know, like women's rights. I mean, yes, corporations should do their part to promote socially what needs to happen, and they can do that by hiring practices and lobbying on our behalf. And a lot of them do. A lot of them have corporate social responsibility. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they're 100% like blameless or whatever. At the same time, though, I think it's just an easy way for people in the black market, and I get why they do, just to ring that bell. Fucking MSOs, fuck corporate weed, whatever. But it's really the government that doesn't do anything about this. Like the corporation doesn't pass the law. The government could pass a law that says anyone can have a license, make it fair for everybody, let everyone out of jail, whatever. They don't. So, you know, so that's my nuanced answer. I think that, yes, MSOs have a duty to people who have done time for marijuana because they are beneficiaries of a two-sided deal where they get away with something that other people got in trouble for. And the fact that they have a piece of paper that has a license on it means nothing to me, and it doesn't mean anything really to the cannabis community either. It really doesn't. At the same time, though, they are not responsible for righting social wrongs. They can do their part, but like the fact that like the government's like, yeah, the companies should figure that out. Nah, fuck you. You should figure it out. Like you're the one who passes laws. So when anytime I see like a Democrat politician like taking the big weed companies to task, I'm like, I mean, sure, but who the fuck are you? No senator visited me when I was in jail for marijuana. The only people who cared about me when I was in jail, like from an institutional perspective, Bethany Hollum, who was a county councilwoman for Allegheny County, and Teresa Nightingale, who's we were friends with prior to all this happening or whatever, who's a Democratic committee woman for the city and also has a job at corporate social responsibility for Cresco, an MSO. So, you know, they were actually the only ones who cared. Like all these other like radical left-wing, super liberal, progressive, like woke people, none of them gave a fuck about me. But the person who worked for the MSO did. So, you know, like just remember that. That's all I'm saying. The truth again is a little bit more nuanced than yeah.
You're naturally a hustler and you're a smart guy. And anybody with that combination, you're never going to be in a tough situation. You're always going to find a way to make money or find a way. So what's your vision for yourself? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
A lot of people have said that about me, and I appreciate that. I respect and I appreciate that people think well of me. From where I'm sitting, I have a lot of trepidation and fear because I've lost so much behind this structurally and financially. And I have a wife, and I now have a little girl who's 20 months old, who was born while I was in prison. So it's not a novel responsibility. Lots of people and many men have this responsibility. Many men who coming home from prison have this responsibility. I'm not saying I'm the only one in the world who has it. But for me, like anyone watching this who's been in that position, incarcerated or not incarcerated, that weight is real now. And I am terrified about how I am going to be able to feed my family. And what I know people have said I'm smart. I'm trying to be smart. I'm trying to see like what I can do and figure it out. I don't know. I have to find something and it has to fucking work because it is not my wife's fault that any of this shit happened. And it is certainly not my daughter's fault that she was born into this situation. They're blameless. You know, it's on me. I have to carry them as a man. I have to provide them with everything they need and at least some of what they want. Make sure their life is good, regardless of how mine is. You know, it's immaterial. If I get what I want, if I'm happier, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. The child and my woman, my wife, my girls, I have to make this work for them. And I am frankly terrified about how I'm going to. So hopefully you're right.
I have confidence in you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, Dose Noun, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thanks for the Chinese food.